Hello, everyone. I'm here with my friend Sir, and we're going to learn a little bit about him today on Flavor TV for Loving All Variations of Race. So, Sir, I know a little bit about you, but why don't you tell us? I know you grew up in Chicago, right?
Yeah, you see it.
And
Yeah,
now you've had a lot of things happen to you that most people don't. So I know you have a lot of tragedy in your story, but you also live your life differently than most, and pretty much like it's your last day. You live it to the fullest. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story, um, because I know
sure.
you had a lot happen.
Yeah. Yeah, just, growing up in Chicago in a very, kind of poor atmosphere, poor neighborhood. And then, we moved to a better situation in a better area. All things were going well. And um, that area ended up getting infested with crime and gangs as well. And along with that, my parents got into drugs, the heavy stuff. And eventually, you know, they were so strung out on drugs, I just had to kind of fend for myself. So ultimately, the place that we lived in, it was a 4 unit apartment building, and it had a full basement and a full attic. And our address pretty much became a drug operation, crack. And at the time I was 14, and um, eventually I, so starting off, I despise of, any kind of drug selling, drug usage, what I'm saying, anything like that, because, I was a good kid, and, I saw those commercials, what I'm saying, dare, what I'm saying, like say no to drugs. I specifically remember them, that one commercial show where they cracked an egg on a skillet and said that this is drugs, and then, and then it, and then, and then as they added the egg onto the hot skillet, it said, "This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?" So so like that right there scared the shit out of me. You know.
Mhm.
But anyway, after my parents had become, you know, drug addicts, my brother, who was 3 years older than me, he started selling drugs out of the house. And I hated him for that. But eventually, I had to pretty much learn how to do that as well. And I was selling drugs out of the house as well at 14, because I didn't have anybody else to feed me or clothe me. Sam, hands was forced. And I was backed into the corner, and I didn't have anywhere to go with that. Fast forward about a year, now it's about summer of 1996. Our house became the most notorious drug operation on the south side of Chicago. It was under surveillance all the time. We were servicing some of the most stand up people in the whole area. You know, we had uh, even cops who were actually on drugs as well. It was just, mailmen, like everybody. It was just a whole um, smorgasbord of people who were coming to our location for crack. And I specifically remember a breaking point for me. It was Christmas of 1995, when a close friend of mine, he was he had got a PlayStation for Christmas, and probably about a week later, his mom had brought his PlayStation over to our house for $30 worth of crack. and he was, just super upset because it was gone for like a week. And when she came to the door with that PlayStation, I didn't even know she was on drugs. But she was like, please don't tell my son, like I really need this and blah, blah, blah. And so I actually sold it to her. And a couple days later, I gave him his PlayStation back. And I said, look, brother, I didn't steal this from you. And that's all that I have to tell you. It came to me and I'm giving it back to you. And he pretty much figured it out. And I just knew that I was, no, like going down the wrong path because, a 14-year-old, I'm actually 15-year-old then, shouldn't have seen anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So, little later on, 2 weeks after my 16th birthday, my mom was taken, and she was never found after that. And the person who did it, he was like a third cousin of ours who was living in the full attic, who was also selling drugs up there. January 3rd, 1997, my mom owned the building that we lived in. So like she collected rent here and there. And so the guy lived up there and she had went up there in the wee hours of the morning to collect rent, and she never came back down. For a long time, nobody knew what happened to her or where she went. So just time was just going by and she was just gone. But probably about a month later, he and a few guys, he and a few friends of his, they had came and did a home invasion of our apartment. They had came and robbed us, and and they had ran away in a getaway car that was parked in the alley. Luckily, my father at the time ran out, and a cop was passing by. He had told the cops like, "Hey, look, this is going on, blah blah blah," and so those guys were caught with all the guns and the drugs and everything in the car. I had went to court and I pointed all these guys out, blah blah blah. But anyway, each one of those guys got 9 years in jail for home invasion.
Wow.
And they did 9 years strong too, because this was 97, and I know for a fact that he got out in March of 2006. But in June of 2006, he blew his brains out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it's
How
just
did you,
story on top of story on top of story, like a lot of things that you didn't know,
right?
and actually I haven't shared like all of this with a lot of people like ever. Lots of people know just bits and pieces. It's a lot. Um, uh, yeah. So that happened January 4th, 1997. 5 months later, my grandmother called me. She lived down in Daytona Beach, Florida. She said, "Baby, I want you to come down here and live with me." I say, "Let's make it happen."
Oh,
And 9 days later, May 11th, 1997, I moved down to Daytona Beach, Florida, and my life changed forever.
oh,
Yeah, I was super. I mean, like everything changed. I went from a 95% black school to a 98% white school. You know what I'm saying? So it
oh,
was a whole lot of changes. But all for the better.
uh,
Yeah. So from there, I finished out my last 2 years of high school. Then I joined the Navy.
that's how I got to the Navy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, Unfortunately, my grandmother got sick in the process, and she died 3 days before I graduated boot camp.
Oh my
Yep. Yep.
gosh, sir.
So she was not able to like see that, but yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of levels, to me. I've seen so much crime and death and just coming from where I come from, and to, like be, still sane and drug free and still positive. It's
You are beyond positive. Like you you're such a great example, because if someone doesn't even know you and they follow you for a little bit on social media, they're going to see you just living. You go to people's graduations, you show up at people's retirement, you travel all the time. You are having fun in Cancun, or you're here, or you're there, you're everywhere. You're an example. I met you because I had just went through a horrible, heartbreaking situation. And I'm like, I need to get out. I need some kind of energy. So I zipped over to the park in Chula Vista to dance. And all of you there that we're doing instructed of the dance, you did a couple songs, and Tiara did a couple songs, and it was so much fun. And I was so angry. I just put all my energy out there and just dance. And everybody's so kind and came up to me and said, "Man, your energy's great." And that's how I met you to start with.
Yeah. Remember.
And then what was crazy about it is then, I was chatting with you for a while and you were so excited, right? And you're always out dancing and you're Michael Jackson. You're just so creative and fun loving. And then you're like, your cousin's here and you're having this great time with your cousin. And you just had this wonderful, wonderful, you're like, my family visited. It has been so long. And it was so beautiful. And then again, horrible tragedy. It's like you're like a you're like movies on TV your whole entire life. And it's like
Yeah.
that's a lot for one person to
Yeah.
handle. And I just want to commend you for living your life out loud and sharing who you are.
Yeah. To kind of piggyback on that and go back into that. Yeah. So, death in the family. I had another aunt back in 2010. Her, I don't know if it was her boyfriend or her ex-boyfriend, came over to her house, and he shot her 4 times and stabbed her 3 times or something like that.
Oh my God.
As their kids was in the basement, and she died, and it was just, you hear of these things happening, but to have it happen so close to home, it's like, wow. And then, as you just elated to a couple years ago, January 1st, 2022, my cousin's son, who was 21, he had took a bad pill
Oh,
that was laced with that was laced with fentanyl,
oh God.
and he died. And like, I went to the funeral over there in Texas, and then so the cousin that you were talking about, she came here to visit me. I can lift up her spirits because what I'm saying. And yeah, we had the best time here. The best time here. She had never been to California. I took her to all the places. Her daughter, her daughter was in the Navy in San Diego. She had came up for a couple of days, and we all just had an amazing time. She spent 8 days with me, and then exactly a month after that, it was her son's, who she just buried. It was his birthday. They were planning a balloon release party at his gravesite, and there was some of her son's friends there, who were in gangs, and they were communicating with these other gang members via social media, kind of talking back and forth, and the guys knew where they were and had no respect of the location, that they was actually at a cemetery. And these guys just drove up to the side of the cemetery because it was a street right there, and then everybody was right there. They jumped out, sprayed the crowd. My cousin got shot twice in the stomach, and she died about 20 feet from where her son was buried on his birthday, while she was on FaceTime with her other two kids. Her other two kids heard the shots and everything. And I mean, like, this is something that you can't even make up. Like, this is real life. And it happened. And she was active in the Army. She was active National Guard in the Army. 52 years old, made national news. It was, I mean,
I know.
and
I gotta see the whole. It's so weird when you're following you and you're having so much fun. I saw you making food with her, and you guys just had all these awesome pictures. You're just so happy. And then you're right. I see something pop up. I'm like, oh my god. I saw you put, but then I see this in the headlines and news, and you're just how even just knowing someone going through something like that is unbelievable, right? And for you to it's just heart wrenching. And how you live your life and handle it is a testament to who you are and the strength that you have.
it hasn't been hard. And it's like I'm so numb to it because I've seen it so much that I just know that it's only two choices. It's either sulk in your sorrow or just continue to live and do the things that make you happy and just hold those memories right here. I choose to do the latter, and that's just it. It's very hard and I think about it and I cry about it, but I triage my stress by worrying about things that I by not worrying about things that I can't control. And it's always going to be easier to, create new memories and hold those old memories right here in your heart than to sit and sulk and somber and let life pass you by and miss opportunities and not show someone else who may be going through the same thing a positive way to kind of handle those stressors that life, throws upon us.
And it's so true, right? You can see people that just suffering in grief forever. It's a hard thing for a lot of people, right? Especially when death seems so final. And that's another part is what you're saying. When you have more, I think when you have a more connection to the spirituality too, you know that they're with you. But it is a hard thing for a lot of people. But that's why I just love seeing you because you're such an example. Because what else could you do, right? You help so many more people by being who you are. They see you get up and go and do and dance, right? And I love that. I saw you doing your Michael Jackson the other day for his birthday. But it's such a powerful thing, and it, you need to be commended for doing that because a lot of people will take a different direction and then they aren't an example. You know what I mean? They bring other people down with them, but you are an example and you keep shining your light. So it's a huge thing, and I honor you for that.
Well,
Fully.
I appreciate that, and it just feels good to me to just be unapologetically me and just open and honest and real because there's so many people who aren't.
No.
And it's like I'm allergic to fake. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I can see right through somebody who is being fake. Um, we only got one shot at this life, and I just want to make sure that I'm not 70 plus years old and saying, man, like I wish I would have did this or handled this like that. Or I want to be like, you know what? Let's go again. I've did this and that and I'm ready to do it again because I have lived instead of just survived.
And you are. I mean, tell me an example, because I'm one of those people that, oh, I'll do this later, or I'll do this when I lost this weight, or I'll do this. And it's like, no, I started following the people that are actually living always. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. Why?
Yeah.
Right? You
Yes.
know,
For
why?
sure. There are so many people who hit me up and have the same questions like, how do you how do you do this? How do you do that? How do you bounce back? You just do it. You make up your mind that this is what you want to do and just do it. If you want to be a positive person, then be a positive person. If you want to be, what I'm saying, the negative Nancy or the Karens or, what I'm saying, whatever they call it, you know, the choice is yours, but at the end of the day, go for what you want.
Right.
Opportunities are endless, and the only person or the only thing that is stopping you is that reflection in the mirror.
And that's so true, right? And a lot of people don't want to look in the mirror and do those reflections and see what's showing up for them. It's easier to
Yeah,
blame someone else. And there's lots of tools out there. I've used lots of tools. I have coaches. Get some support if you're stuck. Do it and watch people, tune into people like you who are doing it. So I don't know if we want to move on to, are you ready? This is the cup
sure.
I got. This is the naughty. So okay, now we get to talk to Sir about his little other side of Sir, which so first I'm going to preface this with Sir just did his latest post recently, so we're going to talk about that. But I'm going to preface this with the fact that I grew up very sheltered, and so I was very naive to the world. So every time I get introduced to things, anything, I'd be like, what the hell? Like, what's going on with that person? And sometimes I'd be very judgmental, but it was in there, right? They put it in there. It got in that head of mine, especially my 20s. It's pretty black and white. And I do something called living soul numerology. And you can see by my numbers how my brain worked and how my way of thinking was. But then I
Hmm.
have this other number that's exactly the opposite. And it's called the soul lover. This one works against the other one, and it's an interesting dynamic. But especially when I was younger, so every time I would be exposed to stuff, and I'd be like, "Okay, you're gay. Talk to me more about this." Right? I don't, and what? Like I'd be all freaked out. But on your latest post, you brought something up, and I was in Chicago at this time. I was working, and this guy I was working with, and I kept getting these weird mixed signals from him. He's a very good looking man, but we were doing business. And it was very successful what we ended up doing. But
Yeah.
I kept getting mixed signals. Like, I kind of thought you were married, but I feel like you're hitting on me. Like, I am very, very, very confused here. And he sent me, and this is like twice, he sends me this profile. And I'm like, so this transitions into the post that Sir just made about being a swinger. Because that's what they sent me was the swinger profile. So yeah, so I found it fascinating when I saw this. I want to talk about it because I have so many friends. And what people don't know about me is especially back then, I was quite judgmental in a lot of different things. But it always got into me. And I am so accepting of anyone where they are. And everyone should be allowed to choose. I have friends that like to get spanked, and I mean spanked. And they have all the tools. Just because people are into things I don't do doesn't mean I can't support them because it makes
100.
them happy and it
Yeah.
makes them in bliss. I've
Yeah.
had people want me to go into some freaking where I'm like I'm not a dominatrix. I have other things I'm into. I have freakiness, and
Yeah.
who knows when we'll delve into all of this. But
Right.
let's talk about you, my newly outed or out on Facebook swinger, because these comments are freaking serious. And by the way, when did you become 60? Because someone said
Oh, that was
you don't have
hilarious.
much, you don't have much time left because you're in your 60s.
He's always joking. He's so funny. Yeah, he's hilarious. Yeah. If if I look this good at 60,
You probably
I mean,
will.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna
You
try.
probably will, sir.
I'll be 44 in December. But yeah, hold that thought.